Walid Phares is here with the other side of the coin, the Fox News Middle East terrorism analyst and foreign policy advisor to Donald Trump. Walid, good to have you here this morning.
Thank you, Martha.
I spoke earlier with Karl Rove, and you just heard Charles Krauthammer's comments, both of them basically saying that Mr. Trump argued for a more isolationist viewpoint and put America first, don't overextend yourself, but at the same time said he would annihilate ISIS. How do you square those two things? Is he talking about more troops on the ground or not?
Well, first of all, let's understand this is not an academic speech. This is a speech that has been delivered in 2016. So what do we have in 2016? We have Russian planes flying over our ships. We have a divided European membership of NATO as to what to do with that crisis. We have a Libya that is exploding, and if it does, it's going to take with it at least 5 countries in Africa all the way down to Nigeria. We have an ISIS not defeated in Iraq and Syria, and soon to be in Lebanon, and we have a deal with Iran that is not working. That is reality. I mean, everything else is sophistication. Now, where to put troops, where to send soldiers, that is not something that will be included as a tactical matter within a speech. You go for the major headlines or the major directions, and then when the crisis will be addressed one after the other, then you will put the specifics.
All right, but you've met with him. Do you know what his perspective is on whether or not he would, I assume he would increase airstrikes to get ISIS, because he's been critical of the president's not doing enough of that. But would it also mean that he would put troops on the ground?
There are 2 types of measures. The immediate measures to contain what is happening until he is in the White House, hopefully, and he has an administration, and he gets the reports of national security. Meaning, a contender in politics now is giving general directions. Somebody sitting in the White House will be briefed. But having said that, definitely there need to be an increase of action where the threat is, not an increase of action just to wait for the next threat to happen. In this case, to answer your question, there is a combined element to defeat ISIS, one of which is to increase airstrikes. The other one, more important, is to have a real coalition on the ground. This is where we are lapsing right now.
All right. Well, we'll look for more details on that. We talked to Karl Rove earlier, and he sort of suggested that he was reading a speech that maybe other people wrote for him. You have talked to Donald Trump. Do you see him as becoming increasingly steeped in his understanding of foreign policy? And are the ideas that he presented yesterday his or someone else's?
Well, let me say this, and I'm sure that everybody, every historian knows it. Every candidate, every president of the United States has people to help him. I mean, nobody is born as a political scientist or an ideologue in this case. So definitely this has been the work of many people, but he decided on every point. He's the one who owns that speech, and he's the one who has that vision. Yes, in our briefings, all of us, we were made sure, and he made sure to make us understand that these are guidelines for the future. Now, when the crisis will come, then of course there'll be consultation, not just within his own team, but within the government and with allies as well.
All right. In terms of getting the allies to pay their fair share, he says, we've paid our fair share and they haven't in NATO and elsewhere. How do you do that when some of those countries don't seem to have the money?
Well, number one, we need to understand what is the debate among themselves. That has not surfaced yet. For example, with regard to NATO, which is the major issue. I mean, I have been going to Brussels, meeting with lawmakers from many countries, all the way up to 27 countries. East Europeans, Central Europeans, Western Europeans do not agree on many things. So we have to have this dialogue among all of those. Number two, they would argue, we will pay if you would do this. So there need to be negotiations, and this is where Mr. Trump would like to be part of this grand bargain, grand deal.
All right, lots more to discuss, but we got some of it in there. Walid, thank you very much. Good to have you with us, as always.